Realme is on fire. After the success of the Realme X, which was an upper mid-range smartphone, the company has launched the Realme 5 and Realme 5 Pro. And while the Realme 5 is a budget offering, the Realme 5 Pro is more of a mid-range device. The Realme 5 Pro is obviously going to battle against the Vivo Z1 Pro and the Redmi Note 7 Pro for the best mid-range smartphone title this season. And things are looking good on Realme's side with its quad camera setup. So, like the title suggests, in this video, I will be talking about my impressions with the device with what has been like 24 hours of use with it. So, let's get started. Okay, design first. And according to Realme officials, this time the design we see on the Realme 5 Pro is their classic one. It's called a diamond cut design, especially made for these phones. But we cannot ignore the fact that the phone has a plastic back and the sides are also made entirely of plastic. Again, that does not necessarily mean that it does not look good. It is quite an impressive design. The rear panel shimmers with rainbow color pattern. Maybe you cannot see it that well on the cameras, but on hands it looks quite good. Talking about aesthetics, the power button resides on the right while the volume rockers and SIM tray are on the left side. You can insert dual SIMs and a separate memory card on the SIM tray. Down below, you get a single firing bottom speaker and finally, yes, finally a USB Type-C port. Good job, Realme. About the feel on hands, it's not something you would say premium. It does not miss that heft to it though. However, holding the Realme X and the 5 Pro side by side, the Realme X will impress you instantly. So overall, I quite like the design on the Realme 5 Pro. However, the feel of the device may leave you wanting for more. Now, let's talk about the display. It's a 6.3 inches FHD Plus IPS panel. And Realme calls this a mini drop display, maybe because it has a mini water drop style notch up front, which as the company claims is 30% smaller than the others. And talking of the notch, this just reminds me of the Vivo Z1 Pro that has a punch hole display, which might seem fancier to some, but for me, a notch, a punch hole, it's all the same. Talking more about the display, it's an IPS LCD panel, and the quality is what you can expect from a typical IPS panel. The viewing angles and colors are good. In terms of brightness, it's typical of what you get on a mid-range phone. Excellent indoors and average outdoors on a bright sunny day. So overall, I've got no complaints with the display. Of course, if Realme could have opted for an AMOLED panel, it would have been undeniable. But for the price, I am not complaining. Now for performance, you are getting the Snapdragon 712 processor, which we saw on the Vivo Z1 Pro as well. It's a slight upgrade from the Snapdragon 710, about 10% of CPU performance increment. And although the architecture of the 710 and 712 is the same, the 712 is a bit more optimized. But again, in real life, it's just like the 710. So we're looking at a performance just like the Z1 Pro and more or less like the Realme X. Gaming performance was, well, an experience to share. In high settings too, PUBG ran fairly smoothly. Multitasking and app openings were smooth too. But I will have to use it for some more time to give you guys a definite conclusion about how it performs in real life. So make sure you subscribe to our channel and hit that bell icon so that you don't miss out on the full review. The phone comes with the latest Android Pie out of the box with ColorOS 6 on top, and as I have been saying in a lot of reviews, although ColorOS has evolved, it's still not very polished. But considering how rumors of Realme having their own UI has surfaced lately, I do hope that it happens really soon. I have expectations of some Android One-ish kind of UI, but let's see what happens. The unit we have has 8 GB of RAM and 128 GB storage, but you do get 4 GB of RAM and 64 GB storage variant along with 6 GB of RAM and 64 GB storage variant too. No matter which variant you choose, you get DDR4X RAM and UFS 2.1 storage. And as of the time I made this video, the pricing of the devices had not been revealed, so I will be jotting it down in the description below. Now let's talk about the cameras. And this is something very interesting to me as well as to others because, well, the Realme 5 Pro comes with a quad camera setup at the back. There's a 48 megapixel Sony IMX586 sensor used on so many phones these days. Second is an 8 megapixel ultra wide angle lens. Third, we have a depth sensor for portraits, and the final one is a 2 megapixel macro lens. Now, the macro lens is something we haven't yet seen on a budget device, so I was very excited to test it out. And the results are as you can see in these samples here. Since it's a 2 megapixel sensor, I felt the sharpness was a little bit missing. Also, the app tells you to maintain a distance of 4 cm for you to take the best optimum macro shots. Talking about the quality from its primary Sony IMX586 sensor, it does a really good job. It's a little bit saturated but looks pleasing to the eyes. The software optimization done by Realme seems spot on. Just check these images for you to judge. The portraits are also good. The background blur looks natural, although edge detection is something Realme needs to fix in its future updates. Now talking about the wide-angle lens, this is the first time Realme has included a wide-angle lens in its offering. But the quality is nothing to write home about. It's not very saturated and lively like the primary lens, but gets the job done. There's also a night mode feature here dubbed Nightscape, which takes around 2 to 3 seconds to capture a picture and, well, does an okay job. It tries to balance exposure and details in the pictures. Here are some samples for you to judge. Having said that, my friend's portraits in artificial light looks good, doesn't it? There is a 16 megapixel Sony IMX471 sensor at the front for selfies, and the image quality is very good. Unlike many other camera-centric phones, this one does not tend to overprocess, which I think is a good thing. And so far, I think the selfies look nice to me. In terms of videos, you can take 720p and 1080p videos at 30 and 60 fps and 4K at 30 fps. As I tested the videos in all three resolutions, I found the 1080p at 30 fps to have better stabilization than the others. As for the battery, you get a sizable 4035 mAh battery inside, which supports 20-watt VOOC 3.0 charging, and Realme is generous enough to provide the charger inside the box. It charges the battery from 0 to 100% in about 80 minutes. And talking about the battery life, it should last a typical day if you are a heavy user. But again, we'll talk more in my in-depth review. The fingerprint sensor is fast and has got it correct all the time till now. Face unlock, which is done by the selfie camera, is fast too, as we have been seeing on all Realme phones. So yes, the Realme 5 Pro seems like a promising device to me. It definitely has more features than what Xiaomi is offering with the Redmi Note 7 Pro and is better than the Vivo Z1 Pro. So like I said earlier, things are looking good on Realme's side. So that was my early impressions on the Realme 5 Pro. What do you think? Is the Realme 5 Pro the best mid-range smartphone out there? Do let us know in the comments. Till then, I'm Pratima Adhikari and thank you for watching.